a stay-at-home dad, watching Disney movies he never had. His daughter digs through all the VHS, crushing the classics in a princess dress. Informed like Scuttle, Kurt's got your ticket, making it real like Jiminy Cricket. Most are off the Captain Hook, but if the Tweedledum, he'll be taking more shots than Bambi's mom. Leaves him raised like Simba, or cracked like the beast dishes. He'll show you a whole new world, you won't need 3 wishes. Stay at home, Disney Dad.
Happy New Year. I thought we'd kick off 2024 with a non-VHS movie because we were inspired by an incredible Lego set over the holidays. It feels good to cross up off the list of essential non-VHS released Disney Pixar movies. I have no idea when this review segment will end, but we definitely want to hit the handful of like 2003-ish and up classic movies that were obviously never released on VHS. So this is Up, and no, I'm not even gonna talk about the first few minutes. I'm not. As far as like Disney Pixar heartbreak goes, is this sadder than Mufasa's death? Yes. This is real life. This isn't a disobedient animated lion cub who can't wait to be king. This is real life relationship loss. This is sad. Real sadness. Like, you can't take a picture of this. It's already gone sad. Like, mommy? Sad. Like, where do you think you are? Sad. Like, what is grief? If not, love preserved sad. Like, why don't he want me, man? Sad. Like, I'm not ready for this sad. Okay? I mean, as someone who is an ugly kid and somehow married up to this level, I feel this. I feel this scene. I feel this deep in my soul. I feel I somehow tripped forward into the gold medal, and if something ever happened, lightning is never gonna strike twice. Energy of this opening scene. This guy knows he won the lottery, and it was taken away from him, and now he's not even gonna bother buying a ticket ever again. Maybe marrying up is the actual up they refer to in this title. I can't review this, so we move on. Let's jump ahead. We start with a grumpy old man sitting on the porch of his house. He ain't moving as the construction company demolish everything and build around him. The crew are like, our boss will now double his offer for the land. Like, they want this guy to move so they can demolish his house and build on the land he owns. For real, great plot. Life this guy over though, and now everyone has to pay for it. I get that, I respect that, I love that. There's a knock on his door, and we meet little boy Russell. He's a wilderness explorer, and he's doing his wilderness explorer duties. He wants to know if the old guy needs any help. He shows off his badges, and this was such a wonderful surprise. That's what this is from. A few years ago, I was in Disney World. I wanted an Expedition Everest shirt. I love Yetis. And I love Disney, don't get me wrong, but their clothing is really tacky. I wanted something subtle. And as I was leaving the ride, disgusted with all the merchandise, the shop lady gave my daughter a sticker. I had no idea what this was at the time or what it was from, but I had it made into a shirt. This year, like 2 months ago, back in November, when we went back to Disney World, my daughter actually did the Wilderness Explorer thing from Animal Kingdom, and it was a blast. I wore the shirt. Everyone loved it. She got this same sticker again. It was good times. Do it. Highly recommend. Anyway, back to old man Carl. Carl says he doesn't need help. He feels like the kid isn't going to go away without him doing a good deed. So Carl says, there's a bird. He just makes up a bird called a snipe. Sneaks into my yard all the time, and he tells Russell to go deal with it, and that'll be his good deed. In the front yard, though, a construction worker accidentally knocks into his and his dead wife's special mailbox they made, and he loses his mind, rightfully so. I get it. I totally get it. They struggle with the mailbox. The guy thwomps the construction worker on the head with his cane in front of everyone, and he gets served. He goes to court. He's declared a public menace, and the old folks home or mental hospital is going to pick him up in the morning. This was the opportunity they needed to get the land from him. He's going to lose his house to the city construction workers. It's over. He sits in his home, and he asks the empty chair, Ellie, what do I do now? Like, sadness turns into anger, like always. And the next morning, the orderlies come to pick him up. The sky goes dark with a million balloons that come from the roof. And there's so many that it lifts his house off the ground, and his house floats away. And okay, pause. On one hand, I wonder if everything from here on in only happens in his mind as he sits and stews in the old folks' home with like dementia or Alzheimer's. And I have questions about helium balloons and whatnot, but none of this matters, Because I don't know if I've ever cheered as hard for a Disney character as I have this old man. Like, my soul is screaming for this guy to win. I get it. Also, this movie looks beautiful. I'm watching this from Disney Plus, plugged into an old tube TV, and the colors of the balloons and the sky still pop off this 30-year-old set. He sits in his chair enjoying a job well done as his house sails through the sky, and suddenly there's a knock on the door, and this is an understated comedic moment in Disney history. Russell has floated away with the house. He's clinging to the outside of the house, and he goes, "Please let me come in." There's a long pause. Carl says no and closes the door. He changes his mind, though, and lets the kid inside, and Russell instantly annoys him. Suddenly, they're floating through a storm. This is not good. The house rocks and stuff drops. It breaks. Scary times. The next morning, Carl wakes up as Russell's poking him in the face, and he goes, "Woo! I thought you were dead!" He wants to drop this kid off, but they hit the mountains, and they almost fall to their deaths. And now, I feel like I'm just kind of skimming what is happening, but honestly, this is the animators are visually storytelling here. Like, it's all visuals. This is some top-notch animation execution. I don't need to recap, but they make it to the top of the mountain, and he sees the falls where he promised Ellie they would end up living, and this is all fantastic. They're now walking, pulling the air house along like a giant balloon along Paradise Falls. All good stuff. As they walk, Russell is annoying the old man Carl. He says, "Let's play a game. Let's see who can stay quiet the longest." And Russell says, "My mom loves that game." That's really funny. They stumble into a giant bird Russell assumes is snipe. What kind of a bird is this supposed to be? Let's Google it. It's a fictitious bird, even though Kevin is supposed to be female. She's based off the male plumage of a Himalayan monal pheasant. Some sources call the bird a snipe, which in this context would be a made-up bird animal of varying descriptions used to play pranks on people, most often in camp settings. A snipe, though, is an actual species of bird. Okay, I didn't understand any of that, but there you go, Wikipedia for you. They hear someone talking in the fog, and a dog runs out. The dog speaks. His name is Doug. His master made him a special collar that allows his barks to translate into English. Here we go, we get the whole squirrel thing, which is like 99% of the viewers' takeaway from this movie. And as the writers, this must break their hearts. They have executed arguably the greatest movie about love and loss and unrelenting heartbreak anyone has ever seen. Like, I'm talking the ability to move on, and sometimes you just don't want to move on. They did this all under the Disney umbrella with a PG rating, and yet, squirrel! More dogs come and they talk as well. The old man is now extra annoyed as the dogs and the birds and the kids distract him, and his floating house smashes into the side of the mountain and some windows break. Old man tries to distract the dogs and the bird, and then he grabs Russell and they make a break for it with the floating house, but to no avail. There is only a couple days left of helium in the balloon, so they have to get the house to Paradise Falls as soon as possible. Russell makes Carl promise to take care of Kevin the bird and says, "Cross your heart," which is something Ellie used to say to him, so he gets all emotional and he agrees. At night, Carl asks the stars, "What have I gotten myself into, Ellie?" The next morning, Kevin is on the roof calling to her babies. Kevin is a mom-girl bird and misses her babies. The dog says she's been gathering food for her babies and has to go back and feed her babies. Russell is like, "We have to go back and make sure she gets back with her babies." Old man says, "No." Russell turns on the waterworks. The other mean dogs show up now, and they want the giant bird, like they want to eat it, and our main characters are not happy about it. The mean dogs push them backwards. There's like a circle of wild dogs all growling and approaching them. It's kind of scary. Then a voice appears from the shadows. It's like, "You came here in that? A house? A floating house?" Someone comes out, and it's Charles Munns. He's the guy that makes the dog collars. Old man Carl goes nuts because this guy's a famous explorer, and he and Ellie were his biggest fans. This is stuff we saw in the opening credits that I didn't want to talk about. Carl is excited to meet his hero, and I feel like another tough pill to swallow about how life is just going to let you down is coming real soon. They put Doug in the Cone of Shame, another odd popular takeaway from this movie. Of all things, the Cone of Shame and Squirrel. Charles has a huge museum of artifacts from all his adventures. He shows them the giant bird he's trying to bag, and Russell's like, "That's Kevin. I trained it to follow us." And Carl sees what's happening. He's like, "Oh yeah, but it ran off. It's gone." And Munns begins the slow heel turn because he wants to kill that bird, and Carl knows what that's going to do to Russell. And then suddenly they hear Kevin squawk, and Charles releases the hounds. I totally forgot about this part of the movie. This is only my second time watching it. This thing just like is an absolute masterpiece. Everyone is chasing Kevin, who is tethered to the house, and the house takes flight with Carl and Russell and Doug and Kevin, and the mean dogs fall into the drink, or they stop on the edge of the cliff in time. They make it to safety, but Kevin collapses with a broken leg, and they can hear Kevin's kids screaming for their mom, and Carl has to decide between honoring his dead wife and helping this broken bird get back to her starving babies. This movie. The dog tells a squirrel joke. Now Russell talks about the good times he used to have with his dad, and this movie just continues to stomp on your soul. Russell talks about how his dad and him used to eat ice cream and count cars, and Carl says it sounds boring, and the boring stuff is what I remember the most as well. And you know what? Up. That's what's happening. They hear Kevin's babies, but a net launches and captures Kevin, and Charles is back, and he wants the bird, and he Molotov cocktails Carl's house as Munns captures and takes Kevin away. Carl puts out the fire, and Russell says, "You just gave away Kevin," and now these two finally have it out, like Breaking Bad style. Carl's like, "I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask for any of this." Carl's like, "I'm going to Paradise Falls whether it kills me or not," and he walks away, pulling the house, but the balloons are out of helium, and the house grinds to a stop on the edge of Paradise Falls, exactly where he wanted it. He made it, but he turns around, and Russell throws down his sash of badges and says, "Here, I don't want it anymore," and stomps off. Carl goes inside. His house is a mess, but he made it. But like most victories, the second you get what you've been obsessing about for months or years, you can't enjoy it. It's empty, because all you've known is the dream. Without that goal keeping one foot in front of the other, you don't even know who you are anymore. Carl looks over his Ellie stuff, and like, for real, this is so sad. This movie is way sadder than Lion King. Picture of him and Ellie, and man, I don't want to die. I don't want my wife to die. I don't want to get old. This was supposed to be a fun Disney review I started in 2019 pre-COVID, something I could watch with my daughter, something we could do together. For the record, bless her little heart, she's chomping popcorn, oblivious to what is happening here. He goes outside, sees Russell grabbing some balloons and floating away. He wants to go after him, so to make his house lighter, he starts tossing furniture and memorabilia out the doors and windows until the house is light enough to float again. 2 chairs symbolically sit on the mountain as he soars after Russell. Doug is at the door now, and now that Carl has had his Scrooge Christmas morning moment, he loves the dog, and they're off to get Russell and Kevin. Russell gets into the bad guy's floating airship Zeppelin thing, but gets captured and tied to a chair. He basically drops this kid out of his airship to his death, and that's kind of terrifying. And Carl sees this, and in a great action sequence, he rescues Russell, and he's off to kick some bad guy ass. Carl distracts the evil dogs by throwing a tennis ball into the other room and slamming the door when they all run in there. He opens Kevin's cage, and the bad guy is alerted, and out of nowhere, there's a super funny scene as Russell squeaks against the side of the window of the airship as it goes by. Carl fights his hero, and the fight is slow moving, and this is really good. This is really fun. Charles flying Zeppelin thing starts to nosedive as Carl and Kevin make a break for it. This guy looks like the sassy guy from the Muppets. They all get to the top of the Zeppelin, and Russell and Carl and Doug and Kevin get to the floating house, but the balloons come unattached, and now the house is on the Zeppelin. Then as Charles falls to his death, Kevin and Russell and Doug make it out okay. They all watch as the house disappears into the clouds as they stand on Charles' Zeppelin. Russell says, "Sorry about your house," and Carl says, "It's just a house," and they get Kevin back to her babies. We end with Russell getting his final badge, and Carl comes to back him up and pin the badge on his sash for assisting the elderly. He gives him the soda badge, the LE badge. Now they sit eating ice cream and counting colored cars, and Doug only sees gray ones because he's a dog. We end with the house that landed back on Paradise Falls Rock. I don't know, folks. After rewatching this, Up might land in my top 2 of all time, just beneath Frozen 2, and possibly, maybe, above Lion King. Right now, tied with Lion King for my number 2 spot. Best Disney Pixar movie I've seen. The second. I was angry this week. I was swearing a lot. I have some stuff to work through, clearly.
That's what I think about.
What do you think?
What we have is a concern about Curtis Anderson. His interviewing style is not the best. His personal appearance is not the best. I was wondering if the man has some kind of a hold over the channel that he's allowed to be employed for so long with the standards of journalism and personal personal appearance.